All right, I want to show you how to understand your lifetime value analysis if you're an ecom brand and give you a tool so that you can actually go through and run the same data as me. So it's going to be this exact tool I'm walking you through. We're going to look at lifetime value from a cumulative LTV, LTV percent of initial, retention rate, what the raw data is, the kind of insights around when people are purchasing, either in the buckets or on a daily basis, how that affects your AOV, do a little projection to say, okay, what do I actually expect to do in 2026 or 2025 and understand that based on how many new customers. Go ahead and validate that with a quick back test to see what the error range has been. And then from there, we can use it to run a cash flow projection for potentially scaling more aggressively. All right, so running through this tool here quickly, you're going to go ahead and drop your CSV data in here. It's all locally hosted, so I don't get access to any of it. But what I need, what the tool needs rather, again, it's on your browser, is a date, when the order was placed, customer ID, order ID. So each order is individual, but also tied to a customer, and then the value. If you want to look at this on a revenue basis, put that in. If you want to look at it on a profit basis, put that in, and I'll let you decide there. If you add any extra columns, those are going to become filters. So I'll go ahead and show you with some example data here. We had example country filters in here and channel filters. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and look at this on a yearly basis. I'm going to start out with the cumulative LTV here. I'm going to remove the averages and just show complete periods, so not showing the partial, and then remove that for now. So let's just walk through exactly what's going on in this data, and then I'll show you some of the insights that we can pull out. So 2018, we had a good year. We had one customer. They purchased. They kept purchasing over and over. It's great. The LTV percent of initial is 600% at year 3. It's probably grandma. I don't know. Year 2 is really your first year. You launch, you get 620 customers. Your average AOV is 88.65. And then that grows over time. I'm going to go ahead and drop out 2018 for now. 2020, we get a higher AOV, the LTV improves, we've improved the product, the retention, something going on there. This is a good sign. This is what we want to see, both AOV creeping up and the retention. 2021 gets the same thing. And then maybe we try something that doesn't work. Product doesn't work. We have out of stock issues, or we try a big promo. 2022, that drops off. So our AOV drops and our retention. If we look at this as a percent of initial, you can see here that the actual percent drops to 195% at year 2 versus, roughly 204 to 208% before. So maybe we fix that issue. 2023 is off to a great start. 2024, or is hits a good, it's off to a good start, meaning year 1. And then 2024 is pacing for a good year 1 here. You can see a few things to note. I don't like partial periods because you can see how they always kind of droop at the end because we only have a partial year. So it's going to assume less going on there, but they can be helpful to see how we're pacing. But I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Other things to note is that LTV percent of initial. So if we're looking at this here, we've got kind of how this is pacing over time, which is helpful, and to remove that initial AOV. So if you're saying, hey, I want to improve both my initial AOV, but also my returning customer percentage, great goals to have separately. Use this one to understand the overall impact. This is really what drives your profitability. But use this one to work with your retention team, whether that's subscriptions, email, SMS, whatever. And this is a really helpful one for them because it removes that initial AOV question. If you want to take this further, you could then just look at this LTV as a percent of returning customers and remove the returning AOV as well. Then last, retention rate. So if we remove this from being a log scale, you can then see just like how many customers return each year. And this is really good for kind of that long tail focus. How do we keep customers going over a long time? All this data, it's the same data down here, whether we're looking at the lifetime value, the retention percentage, or what the individual customer revenue is that's being driven here, and kind of what we could expect. So then from there, some of the questions might be, okay, how do we improve this? So let's go ahead and look at this chart here and say, all right, so we know this year is pacing well. We want to keep pushing this. A couple areas. First, we could keep pushing up our AOV. We hit 119.57. Can we bundle better? Can we do cross sales, upsells, post-purchase sales, whatever that is, to keep increasing that initial value? You want to drive value for the customer, but you also want to keep pushing that up. And you can see we're already pacing to do that, 2024, 2025 in the data here. But that's great. We want to keep doing that. Second is, okay, now how do we get a higher percent of those to return? and either have a higher value when they return or come back more often or just more of them return from this chart here. That's where this chart comes in, is really helpful. Start looking at it by buckets. We'll go to daily later. But this kind of assumes that we don't have a specific subscription plays going on, and rather that people are coming back organically. This is pretty organic. Otherwise, we'd see big spikes at the 30-day, 60-day, whenever the subscription recurs. So I'd want to look at this and say, okay, what are the type of customers that are buying from 30 days to 60 days, 1 to 2 months? What are the people that are buying 6 to 12 months, and any of those spikes there? And then if there's anything that stands out and say, oh, well, 65 days, there's no reason for a spike there. Maybe there's something going on that we can put an email on day 63, 64. That might be when a lot of people are running out. The most important clearly seems to be right here, days kind of 20 to 40. So I would say we really need to be educating heavily days 0 to 13, make sure people use it well, get the most out of it. Days 14 through probably 90 is when we're really pushing. You're probably running out. You want to subscribe and get that back in, but trying different messaging. And then messaging back here might be, hey, you're running out, or you bought this time last year, you want to come back. That's the areas that we're trying to lift, kind of different areas of this. Another thing that's helpful to understand is like what happens if we really scale new customers. So right now, maybe you used to be 50-50 new returning. That's going to affect your cash flow a lot differently than if you're 80-20 or 75-25 on new returning, because your new customer CAC may be based on that new customer. So you might have a lot of cash coming from returning that you're not spending on new. And if you tripled new today at the same CAC, you may have a different cash flow question. So it's helpful to understand kind of what your split is right now. And from there, also try to project out what's actually going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this back testing tool. What this is doing is just saying, all right, so we had one customer in 2018. We expect nothing from them in 2025. What does that likely mean in 2026? Still nothing. 2019, maybe we had 620 customers. We expect an average 47 cents per that customer. And we don't really expect any to purchase there. But then 2020, we expect $1.54 here. And then based on kind of how those fatigue, we expect maybe 51 cents per customer here. So that drops off. Maybe we say, we're getting much better. We're going to do 0.65 and bump that up. And we do the same thing for each of these to say, okay, what's the total 2025 going to land at? And maybe we say, actually, we think we can do slightly more customers here, 3,500. And what does that look like in year versus previous, and go from there. So let's say maybe we land at 3,000 here and there from there. So that gives us some data to work with here of those customers. Okay, then we can also back test and say, okay, in 2022, what would this have projected us at? 206 versus 218, minus 5%. 2023, 254 versus 335. Maybe we're getting better, so this model is now getting more and more conservative. That's why we'd want to bump that up and go for there. So that can help you understand what some potential cash flow implications are. The other thing we can do is take this and send it to a cash flow projection. It'll take all of these tool inputs here and lock them into the projection. So you can see we're saving the same AOV, CPA down here. The retention rates are all locked in, and we can see what some potential cash flow implications would be. I won't go too far into that though, because that's for a different video. Go ahead and ask me if you have any questions. But again, once I send this tool, just go ahead and click upload new here. Drop your CSV file in. It's got to have these 4 things plus any extra columns that you want to filter on. And from there, just go ahead and click analyze. It all stays in your browser and you can run the math from there. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. It caps at, I believe, 1 million rows. So it should be plenty of data for most size companies. Thanks.